Good day and welcome to this special edition of Spotlight, the news and feature program on your own Channel 977 and on YouTube about people and events of interest to Lake Monticello. For the LMOA Broadcast Group, I'm Ron Krause. Today, the spotlight falls on Lake resident Steve Smith, who has installed an array of solar panels on his Sunset Court home, and on Andrew Cotter, power supply specialist of Central Virginia Electric Co-op. CVEC buys power from the new solar installation on South Boston Road, that's Route 600, adjacent to the substation, and CVEC also supplies power to about half of the lake. In August 2023, a crew from Sunday Solar in Charlottesville finished installing 193 Q-cell solar panels on the roof of the Ashlawn Clubhouse, which are projected to save LMOA some $10,000 annually in energy costs. So what does this mean to all of us? Steve Smith, let's start with you, if we may. How long have you had your solar array, and what was the attraction?
We started to be concerned about our electric bill in 2018. 2019, we contracted with a local contractor to install 20 panels on top of our roof, and the objective was to reduce our bill by 50%. They were installed in February 2019, and shortly after that went into production. Not only is it a source of power, which is variable because it depends on the sun, but it also saves us CO2 emissions and gets us some tax credits too. So it's a very dependable system that it works when the sun is out.
Yeah, right.
And it has saved us a good deal of money over the years. We've had some experiences with it now for 5 years, and I would guess that the payback on it is somewhere in the range of 10 to 15 years.
Yeah, I was going to ask you about that. What makes your house qualify, and is the age of the roof any concern?
I think if anybody's going to consider solar, one of the very first things that they will want to look at is the opportunity for the sun to shine on their roof.
Yeah.
If you go to Google Maps, put in your address, and look at the overhead shot of your house, two examples that I would use, one would be Balling Court, right over here by the clubhouse. There are several houses there that were good candidates for solar there. You can see on their roof that the sun shines directly on it. And right next door, there's a house that's shaded by the trees. So you can tell right there, one house is a good candidate, one's not as good a candidate.
Right.
If you look at my house on Sunset Court, you can see all four of the houses there, bright sunlight on all of the roofs. So they would all be reasonably good candidates for a solar system. That's probably the first thing that your solar contractor is going to do. Ask for your address and see if it's a viable installation. The second thing they're going to do is look at your bill. How much do you spend? How much do you consume? Because if it's a very, very small system, they're not going to want to come out and spend their time and your money putting a system on top of your roof. If you consume a lot of electricity, they'll be very interested. We are an all-electric house, no propane, so we heat, cool, cook, ventilate, just everything with electricity.
Well, how does this work from you? Does the power from your panels go onto the grid, and then you get a credit from CVEC?
The power from my panels initially goes to powering my house. When the panels are producing more than the house demands, then it goes back into CVCE's grid, and very nicely they give me full credit for it.
Okay.
Kilowatt for kilowatt, price for price. The same thing that they're charging me, they give me credit on my bill as a reduction.
Okay.
Each of my bills shows exactly how much I have given back to them, deducted from the amount that they've supplied to me.
All right. Andrew Cotter, CVEC, how does this work for CVEC?
Well, first I got to say you did a fantastic job actually summarizing it. But yeah, from CVEC's perspective, we consider solar rooftop. I'll be calling it PV, stands for photovoltaic, but the PV systems. When you're buying one, it's sort of considered like an appliance for the customer. So it's their own system, it's your own generator that's producing power for your house. And yes, what happens is it powers the home first, and then any additional power that it produces, it goes back on the grid, and then we provide the full retail credit for that power. And, sort of from our perspective, the electrons are electrons, the power goes back on the grid, it's probably going to the neighbor's house. But it doesn't really matter. An electron from solar is similar to, is exact same as an electron from any other source, any generator. So for us, what we're trying to do is to give people the opportunity to really take control over their power bills, and we think the net metering is a very powerful program for that. And then it's really kind of our responsibility to manage the grid to allow and enable customers to do that.
How did CVEC get into this in the first place?
It's been a growing trend in the industry all around, but ultimately it comes down to our directors who are, given feedback from the members of the co-op who said this is something they want. They want a program like this, and so it's our job to fulfill this. It's, as an electric cooperative, we're ultimately owned and governed by the customers that we serve, and so it was basically their choice, and we're fulfilling that.
Yeah. Has CVEC set any new goals for increasing the percentage of renewables for providing consistent, affordable energy?
Yes. So we'll have to separate kind of two things. So coming back, my job is I manage the power supply for Central Virginia Electric Cooperative. And so our goal for our power supply is to have a long-term, stable, and affordable energy, consistent, stable, affordable, and safe energy for everybody. And renewables is a large part of that. Particularly for us, it's the large-scale renewables, like the Cunningham Solar, the 5 megawatt PV system that we're the sole off-taker for. We're the only people purchasing that power. We have 2 more 5 megawatt systems that are online as well, and we have an additional 8 megawatt system out in sort of Afton area that we're trying to get online in the next year. From a power supply perspective, it's a very important part of our portfolio. In the exact same way that Steve here is using solar as a hedge to make sure for consistent power bills long term, we're doing the same thing, just at a larger scale. And it's almost the exact same reasoning, and it functions in a very similar manner. And so that's what we're trying to do, and we're trying to build out that portfolio as much as possible. But we do have some physical limitations on our grid of how much power we can put on. We couldn't be 100%, by no means. But we are trying to increase that amount of sort of renewable self-generation that we have. So that we have, again, more control and more flexibility in the long term as part of our overall power portfolio.
Does CVEC still have what are called solar shares? And if so, how do they work?
Yeah, so the solar share program is really a way for everybody to get what we think are the primary benefits of residential solar. And from our perspective, there's 2 real benefits of it. One is the renewable energy, and the second one is being able to have consistent power bills, being able to have a hedge against what might be increasing rates and different, basically, changes of power prices in the future. So what we've done is we've basically allocated a chunk of our own solar portfolio from the big PV systems that we have, the 5 megawatt solar generators. And because they are on our distribution grid, because we're not buying them, we're not importing, it's our power on our grid, we know the price, we know the cost. And from that, we're trying to translate that over to the customers. So it's probably easier now for me to break down a little bit on some of the programs we have and what makes
ahead,
the Solar
please.
Share special and how people can save money with it. So our basic rate is 2 components. It's actually a lot more complicated when you look on the bill, but you can summarize it in 2 components, and I'm going to be using round numbers just to keep things simple. You have a basic charge of $32, and that you pay no matter what. That is part of being on the CVEX system.
Okay.
It's kind of paying for the overhead and staff and whatnot. And then you're charged 13 cents per kilowatt hour. That's all the different other charges. They're basically paid for on a by kilowatt hour basis. Kilowatt hour being the general energy unit we use to measure everything. With the solar shares, how it would work is you're kind of prepaying. You're subscribing to as much as 1,000 kilowatt hours a month. And you're subscribing to that power at a rate of 12 cents a kilowatt hour. It's actually right now cheaper, the power from the solar shares, than the power that we're selling under our regular retail program. And that power is locked in till 2043, those power costs. So folks, they call, they can sign up, and they'll subscribe to as much as they are willing to subscribe to, up to 1,000 kilowatt hours that will be locked in at this 12 cent kilowatt hour cost. And we're doing this because we want folks who maybe have too much shade, live in a multi-dwelling apartment. There's a number of reasons a lot of folks can't do their own solar, but at least this way they have a chance to know what the price is going to be for a certain percentage of their monthly or of their annual power consumption. And that won't change, and that's locked down to 2043. Whereas our retail rates, while they are steady, at the end of the day, we're an electric cooperative, we're a not-for-profit utility. We need to have the rates to recoup the costs. There's very little margin at all. So as our costs change, our rates might change, but those solar shares, those prices will not. That's roughly how the solar share program works. Kind of from the perspective of the customer and from us, in a lot of ways, it's an accounting process. So what we're doing is we are seeing how many of these kilowatt hours per year you're purchasing. I retire the renewable energy attributes on your behalf, which is what makes it renewable power. And then through the accounting and billing system, we're charging you the right way. So that's, from the customer's perspective, they don't really see any difference. They'll call, they get signed up, their bill changes. It should change for the lower right now. And that's basically it, versus having to go through the process of getting an installer and putting system on the roof or on the ground.
What's the cost of the solar shares?
It's in 200 kilowatt blocks, and I believe the cost is $4.50 per 200 kilowatt block. And when you add in the power cost adjustment, the taxes and whatnot, it roughly ends up being 12 cents kilowatt hour.
And how do these work with the renewable energy shares?
That's a different rate that we have called the renewable, our renewable energy rate. And the difference is, for the renewable energy rate, is that whereas the solar shares, let's say you buy 1,000, you subscribe to 1,000 a month, and you use 1,200 or you consume 1,400 kilowatt hours in that month, only those first 1,000 kilowatt hours are covered by the solar share, and the other 400 is our regular power. Under the renewable rider, all the power is renewable. And basically that means, again, I'm taking these renewable certificates and I'm retiring them on your behalf. And the cost of the renewable rate is about 2 cents a kilowatt hour higher than our regular rate. So regular rate is $32 plus 13 cents a kilowatt hour. The renewable rider is $32 a month and 15 cents a kilowatt hour. So you're paying this 2 cent premium. And so the real difference between the two, one's the price. The second one is the renewable rider automatically covers your entire bill. So you know you're 100% renewable, doesn't matter how much you use, versus the solar shares where you're limited to what you've subscribed to. And so those are really the two kind of main differences. And so in general, if someone wants renewables, I would say right now the Solar Share program is a stronger program. It's a newer program, and it's built off of our own system. Whereas the renewable rate, it's better for folks who don't know how much power they're going to be using, who maybe are only here on vacations, and some months they only use 200 kilowatt hours, and some months they use 2,000. Well, what do you subscribe monthly for? If you oversubscribe, basically that power is sort of wasted. You're paying for power that you're not using. So the renewable rate's really for folks who want 100% of their bill covered and don't really know what would be a good baseline for subscription. And the Solar Share, otherwise, it's a less expensive program, but again, you're setting yourself for a certain amount each month.
I see. Well, that's helpful. Andrew, for clarification, is this an investment that the impact on the customer's bill? I guess basically you've really just explained in the two different categories. That you've given part of this answer also. What should people consider in making a choice or deciding what to do at all?
One of the ways I sort of think about it, and for folks who are interested in solar and renewables, is first, ease of use. Sometimes it's just easier to call and be part of the renewable rate program, or to be part of the Solar Shares program. So there's a simplicity. And the second one is, are you a good candidate for solar? As mentioned, you need to have sun, you need to have space. And so that's sort of a second part of it. The third one is kind of the commitment. One of the things that makes these programs different from the net metering program, you own your own generator. And you're responsible for that generator and paying attention, versus these other programs where CVEC is taking care of everything. And while in general solar is very dependable, you do have to pay attention to it. Maybe not as much as a house plant, but stuff does happen. Sometimes there's power electronics in it. Sometimes the system goes on to standby. Little things happen, and people aren't paying attention to their bill. They'll find out that it's gone 6 months without generating any power, and they just didn't realize it. You'll go through the spring and the bills are low, so you're not really looking at it, and then all of a sudden come December and you get this really high bill, and they give me a call, and I look and I say, your system hasn't been operating since April. And these things do happen, and so that's one of the other sort of elements to think about when doing the solar. And I don't want to say that solar is undependable. It is not. It is. It is a dependable product, but these things do happen. There's, again, power electronics, there's computers on it, and sometimes it just needs to be reset. Sometimes you have to have an electrician come in because a wire's loose or a fuse is blown. So that's one of the big differences between a net metering program and one of our other programs, is that you are actually the owner of the system, and it's your responsibility. We consider it an appliance. We don't look into the house. We don't know how much power is being generated. It is yours. We just know from the meter how much power is coming in and how much power is going out, and bill you accordingly.
All right, thank you. Steve Smith, I don't know, did we cover this before? What was your cost and how long you figure it will take to recoup?
In our case, I would say it's a 10 to 15 year investment. We have a near ideal positioning of the house.
Yeah.
The contractor initially estimated 20 panels to cover half of our electric bill. We ended up with a few more than that, but it does cover approximately half of the bill that we had 5 years ago. Andrew makes a good point. There are some very sophisticated electrical programs that go with the system that are in your house. They're accessible on the web, and you can see them from anywhere. We had 2 panels fail in 2019, and they went from 100% of their expected production to 20% of their expected production. The manufacturer stood behind them very well. The installer came in and installed the new panels, and you can see on the reports how 2 panels failed, the production went down, our costs went up, but by monitoring the system that we have in the house, it was obvious. There was no question what had happened. It was only what to do.
So you had a system you were able to tell somehow.
Yes. The system is web-based with some excellent support. They offer reports. You can look at your production daily, monthly, annual, yearly. You can look at it lifetime. It will show you how much you've used, how much you put back in the grid, and to some degree how much you've saved. The system it's kind of interesting. Andrew mentioned net metering. It's kind of interesting, the meter they put on the house when they come out and start your net metering program. The meter actually runs backwards.
Oh.
So when you're producing more power than you're using in the house, there's a little arrow that shows that the power is going back to CVEC instead of into your house. That's kind of a cool function. But in the time that we've had it, 5 years, that's been the only blip or the only issue where something failed. I think 2 or 3 times it dropped off the internet, but that was a system-wide power failure. And when the power came back on, it started up again just like your TV or your internet connection without any issues.
You figure, have you found any downside to going solar?
I haven't found any downside. I'm a bit of a numbers guy, and we are monitoring it probably monthly when the bill comes in to see that the bill more or less matches how much the system says how much energy went back to CVEC versus how much is on my bill saying that I gave back to the grid. And it's amazing how close the numbers are. It's a true savings. There's no question. I did a couple of charts that showed our bill in 2023 based on the CVEC costs and what power we gave back to them. And in the annual bill in 2023, we saved about $900.
All right. Okay. Andrew, how does the solar array on South Boston Road figure into CVEC's plans?
Oh, it's the solar array, that and the 2 others that we have operating, and hopefully the 4th one coming up soon. It is a core, it is a critical piece of our portfolio moving forward. In general, from the power supply perspective, the markets that you have to buy power from, and we're part of a market that goes from Ohio down to North Carolina. While the energy itself is staying consistent, all the other costs are swinging wildly. And there's a lot of things that are happening that is making the larger market more variable. There's climate change is a big issue. We're having these larger storms. Even just a few years ago, during a cold front here in Virginia, may not have had a cold front hitting Ohio. So you can get cheap power in Ohio instead of buying really expensive power in Virginia. But right now we're having these huge heat waves and cold fronts, and so everybody is struggling at the exact same time to buy power, and everyone's having to pay more. So it's a competitive market, and the price of power changes every 15 minutes. Well, it changes every second, but basically every 15 minutes it's changing. So when you have these big storms, so we need to insulate ourselves from these giant market fluctuations. And the way we insulate ourselves from that is by having our own generators. And we do that through the Cunningham system. We have another called Martin and Palmer. And then we're, a fourth one coming up. So those are our systems. We're the sole off taker of that power. It's going onto our grid. We have complete control of those costs. And sort of similar to, again, someone getting rooftop solar and they're paying, let's say they pay the solar company $100 a month. They know they're going to be paying that for 25 years. We know what we're going to be paying for the power from those PV systems for the next 25 years and then hopefully beyond once those initial 25 years are up. And so that is a known quantity that we can control. And so that's what's so important for us, to really get as much of that. It's called behind the meter is the term, but it's behind our meter, our giant meter with the transmission grid, not the small meter on the house.
Yeah.
So we have a big, massive meter. And so behind our meter, and so it's a very important piece of the equation for us to get as much of that as possible. I don't know if there's an upper limit or set goal that we have at the moment, but we do have a very strong appetite, and we're looking to get as much as possible.
So does money from the solar shares or the certificates go into the open market or into your ability to build your own power sources?
So, yeah, there are two elements of that question here, and they're a little bit separate. So, for the solar shares don't really support our investment in PV. That's actually just a program we wanted to offer to our customer base.
Right.
And the reason we want to offer that is, again, not everyone can get rooftop solar, so it's a question of equity and giving everybody the opportunity to get the value of something like a rooftop solar, even if they couldn't get it. So there's no profit motivation coming in there. It's not offsetting any costs. That is just something that we've priced it at a manner that we know we can break even at a certain limit. So that is its own thing for the solar shares. For the renewable energy credits, right now, Central Virginia Electric is selling the renewable energy credits from our large-scale PV systems. And that was a strategic consideration that our goal now is to get as much of this behind-the-meter solar as we can get and to position ourselves to protect our rates long-term as much as possible. And selling those renewable energy credits is a part of that. And it gives us the opportunity in the future, should we want to retain those renewable energy credits, should their regulations change or something that we need them, well, we have it. We're generating them ourselves. We don't have to go to the market and buy it from everybody else. And so our goal right now is to really expand that portfolio of behind-the-meter generation as much as possible.
Okay, interesting. Well, thank you for that. Anything else either of you would like to say? It's been quite illuminating, to use a word.
I guess I would say to anybody interested in solar, it works. The payback is getting better every year. The new panels are much more efficient than the panels from 5 years ago. They're a little less expensive. They're manufactured in the US now, that most of the ones prior were manufactured in China. There's a big manufacturing facility in Texas and one in California. You can save real dollars. If you look at our bill over the last 5 years, you can see our bill in 2018 was about $300 a month. You can see it went down some in 2020. 2021, they added some additional panels to meet the expectations of the contract. In 2022, 2 panels failed. And you can see right there on the graph, one of the graphs that they provide, that 2 panels failed, your bill went up. I was intrigued by that, and we were able to find out what it was and solve the problem. 2023, we're back down just about $150 a month for our electric bill, when it was $300 a month in 2018. Right now, my electric bill is probably less every month than my aqua bill, and we're very pleased with that.
Yeah.
So, and I want to just kind of continue with that a little bit, because one of the things that I want to make sure that folks understand, and where I get the worst calls, and this is what I hate to hear, and I want all of your audience members to really think about, is it's not free. And there are vendors out there that will talk and say words like, never pay for electricity again.
Yeah.
And that is a lie. If anyone says that, you can kick them out. And there's a couple reasons. One, you're going to be paying at a minimum $30, $32 a month to CVEC. All right, so already a lie. Number two, even if your power bill from CVEC goes down, you're sort of not just buying power from CVEC, now you're buying kind of power from yourself, from your own system. And that actually costs money too. And so sometimes folks come in and they're like, I don't understand. I thought I was going to be saving money, but it turns out they're paying more for the power from their solar than they were from us. And so earlier on, I kind of talked about, I put this number out here, 13 cents. 13 cents a kilowatt hour. That's the cost of our retail electricity. And when folks sit down with the solar vendors, they're talking over 25 years. And over 25 years, you can mess around with numbers a whole lot. And what I tell people is the most important thing is find out how much power you're going to be getting in a given year and how much money you're going to give the solar vendors. And if you basically divide how much power by the cost, you get a cents per kilowatt hour. So you're buying from us 13 cents per kilowatt hour power. Find out if you're getting 11 cent power from the solar company or you're getting 15 cent power from the solar company. And a lot of it comes down to how the system is financed. A lot of these companies are really just financial companies. They're there to give out loans. That is what their goal is, and they happen to put up solar at the same time. So how these systems are financed makes a really big difference. People who tend to be able to buy it outright tend to get really good deals over time. They start doing the math and they say, wow, it's 10 cents. But other people, they get, it's a 4% interest rate on it. And so it starts off at 11 cents and then it's going to end up at 25 cents. And while we can't say that our power is going to be 13 cents a kilowatt hour for 25 years, and frankly, it's not going to be. There's too many moving targets. There's definitely scenarios where the power gets a lot more expensive and scenarios where the power gets cheaper. But just the reality of things tend to get more expensive over time. At least if you can figure out the current cost of power, you can make a decision for yourself. Okay, CVEC gets 13 cents right now. This is going to be 14 cents, but I think over 25 years, we're going to be ahead. Or CVEC's at 13 cents, they're offering it at 10. But boy, there's this 4 or 5% increase in the price every year. What's that going to mean? And so anytime they start talking 25 years, just think, what's it going to be like year to year? And really have them break down the year to year. And if you can do that, people tend to make good decisions once they can figure that out. Because if you're talking for $60,000, you'll save $15,000 of electricity over 25 years. Those numbers actually don't really mean much, and they don't really mean much to your day-to-day power bill. And even in that scenario, that might only be $10 a month savings. But so you got to get away from those 25-year projections and just figure out, hey, what's it going to cost year to year and month to month? And to really pay attention to that. And one of the worst scenarios that we see, and again, what is the minimum monthly bill going to be to the solar company? What sometimes happens is in February, we have the shortest days of the year, and it's the cloudiest and the rainiest. So for us, our February output generation is about half of what we get in the summer. So May, June, July, August, we'll do almost 100% more, or not 100% more, 50% more than we will generate in February. Well, that's also your most expensive month for powering your house. Basically keeping your house warm at night when there's no sun and it's been 0 degrees for 3 days straight. That is your most expensive time of the year. So sometimes people end up with still a large bill in February. And they're paying the solar company. So they might have saved $300 over the course of the year, but then March comes and all of a sudden they have a $500 bill, $200 to CVEC and $300 to the solar company. they might have saved all year, but sometimes in that February can really hurt. And so, people need to be prepared for that and to understand that, you'll still be buying power, especially in the winter months, and to have that worst case scenario kind of set up that, yes, I will still be able to afford it, and to understand that, sure, I might have been saving a whole bunch of money in the spring and in the fall, but, it can still come back and hit you a little bit in the summers and in the winters when the air conditioning and the heating system is really going full blast.
Well, it's a good explanation and good cautionary advice to everybody, I guess, that just the realities of weather and time and calendar. Thank you. We have been talking with Lake resident Steve Smith and with Andrew Cotter, Power Supply Specialist for Central Virginia Electric Co-op. Our appreciation to you both. That's very, very helpful. We hope that you will join us here on Channel 977 and on YouTube for more spotlights and for the full range of broadcasting by the LMOA Broadcast Group. And so we look forward to seeing you again and hope that you will, as I say, tune in every day and on YouTube to see what else we have to offer. For the LMOA Broadcast Group, I'm Ron Kraus. Thank you and good day.